Hello and welcome to part one of our three-part video series on supporting students with disabilities in higher education. In this video, we will discuss what defines disability. We'll explore the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the federal law that guides our work as accessibility services professionals, and we'll talk about what this means for you as a faculty member supporting students with disabilities. In order to understand how accommodations are implemented in the higher education setting, we first need to understand how disability is defined and where that definition comes from. So the definition that we use for disability is actually outlined in the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which was passed in 1990. And this definition of disability includes any physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major living activity. And a major living activity is defined broadly and can encompass things like reading, concentrating, writing, or even managing physical functions like a person's mobility or their blood pressure. Disabilities can be visible or invisible, permanent or temporary, and there's a lot of variability in how each individual experiences disability, which we will talk about later in this video. It's important to note that any two individuals with the same diagnosis may not experience that diagnosis in the same way, and for that reason, disability and diagnosis are not considered the same thing. Disabilities can be visible or invisible, permanent or temporary. They vary in severity, impact, and not every diagnosis is going to qualify under the ADA's definition of a disability. For example, one student with anxiety may not experience symptoms that substantially limit their daily life, while another might. And that's why we assess each student's case individually to consider what they need and whether their diagnosis is in fact substantially impacting their daily living activities. As aforesaid, how an individual experiences disability can vary greatly from person to person. However, there are some common disability categories. What's important to remember is as we talk about these categories, individuals may also experience comorbidities, so they may have more than one disability co-occurring, and that can make situations more complex and nuanced and also create new barriers. Generally speaking, there are a couple of different categories disabilities can fall into. Cognitive or developmental includes specific learning disabilities and things like ADHD. Psychological generally encompasses conditions like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder. And then physical or sensory disabilities generally include things like vision loss, limited mobility, or hearing loss. So students often have very diverse needs and therefore require very individualized plans for accommodation or support. Disabilities can also vary greatly in duration. Some disabilities will be permanent, affecting a student from birth and throughout their life. Others still might be temporary and include things like a concussion sustained as a result of a sports injury or recovering from a surgery. Still, others may occur episodically and affect the student abruptly and without warning, and that might include something like a seizure disorder or chronic migraines. It's important to remember that the accommodations our office approves are reflective both of the duration in which a student experiences their disability symptoms and the context during which those symptoms occur. I'd like to highlight a couple of different trends that accessibility offices are observing nationally, and that includes an increase in the number of students disclosing mental health conditions. We're also noticing more complex combinations of disabilities, so individuals who have multiple diagnoses that may interact or exacerbate each other, and a higher overall use of accessibility services offices. This is in fact a positive trend. It shows that more students are feeling empowered to seek the services and supports that they need, but it also means accommodations are becoming more nuanced and individualized. Unlike in K-12, where the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA, ensures the right to free and appropriate education, colleges follow ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the ADA is actually a civil rights law designed to prevent discrimination for individuals with disabilities. The primary purpose of this law is to provide equal access, not necessarily guarantee success. Therefore, it's very important that students meet the essential requirements of course programs. ADA is actually comprised of 5 titles, and Title III refers to or applies to places of public accommodation, and that's going to include private colleges, especially those that are receiving federal funding in the form of MAP grants, SAMHSA grants, etc. And so the purpose of this law is to ensure full and equal access for all individuals, including those with disabilities, to college programs, services, and buildings. And it protects otherwise qualified students in their access to all of the college experience. The caveat is that it is not designed to alter the rigor of courses or to alter the essential course elements or learning objectives of any courses. This law is really about creating a level playing field for all students, not giving any one particular person an academic advantage. In closing, I'd like to highlight some key takeaways as to what we've covered today, and that is that disability is broad, varied, and very individualized. How one person experiences a diagnosis will not necessarily be how another person experiences a diagnosis, and therefore diagnosis in and of itself does not constitute disability status. It's really about the symptoms and individual experiences and how and whether those symptoms impact their daily living. As a reminder, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, ensures equal access for all students, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee success. It's about creating a level playing field, not giving anyone necessarily an advantage. And it's important for us serving students to recognize all different forms of disability or all the ways that disabilities might impact individuals. And that includes invisible disabilities, such as mental health disabilities, anxiety, things like that. And as faculty, you play an integral role in providing inclusive access. And so I just want to say thank you for all of the things that you do to support students and for your desire to learn more about how to better support students with disabilities. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and learn more about disability support in higher education and providing equal access to students in higher ed. In the next video, we'll explore how students register for accommodations and how accommodations are determined for each student based on their individual needs. Please know that we are here to support you as you work to support students, and we are always available for questions, concerns, or conversations about disability. Our phone number is 815-740-3204, and we can be reached via email at oas@stfrancis.edu. Thank you so much.